let Cardio Miracle be one of the sponsors. And so they did. And, you know, I mean, I'm getting 25 to 50K per corporate date.
Yes. Yes.
And so they realized there was a great value there for what I was delivering in a 15-minute spot. What was funny is I started at 10, they moved me to 15 minutes. Then the next show was 20, the next show was 25, the next show was 30. Some shows they had to cut it to 15 because things were late. That's a cool place to be in, right?
Well, there's the showmanship side, and then there's the private side. And some of the best entertainers have had that duality of what I do here is not who I am when I go home or I'm at Walmart. Is that a weird place to be? To be because you're in that zone now. Your name is out there everywhere now. Is there part of that you're learning a new dance with?
That's a cool question. In reality, I just have to take a page from some of my heroes like Jim Carrey or Robin Williams or some of these great performers from the past, where if you're turned up to an 11 at all times, you're going to burn out and it's going to be too hard on you. And so
Yes.
I do believe that we are the same person on and off stage. That's a part of our promise and congruence, and to preach kindness, to preach family, but not to live it. That's a weird deal, and that happens. But I know that the people that I associate with, even if they're large and bombastic on stage, they are the best of humans off it. And that's the only people that I'm associating with at this point. And so the person that I see that's great on stage, and then I come off stage and they're not that guy, I've distanced myself from them, and I've done all I can to be as congruent as possible. A lot of people say, Jason, you're not that funny off stage. The fact is, I am funny when it makes sense to be funny. But if I was funny all the time, then that would ruin every conversation.
Yeah, there would be no point of it then. Yeah.
Yeah. So
again, as I do media training, I talk with people about this new stage and the camera and stuff. I do stress values. People are really surprised when I get into the value conversation. But like you said, who you are is who you are. The camera may be there, the camera may not. And the best thing I tell people is when they know you're real here and they know you're real off, there's a different trust level that comes through the camera. And I'm sure you've experienced that yourself, that you've got to just be true to you and know what yes is or know what no is.
Yeah, that's a great point and great coaching. And I mean, the challenge is that a lot of people, when they get on stage, they're lying just enough to have to cover their tracks. And the fact is that if you just tell the truth all the time, if you're just who you are all the time, it makes it a lot easier.
So let's jump to Halloween night. Of all nights in the world, Halloween night.
Yeah.
Now, we do have to do a little backtrack here because Donald Trump had a speaker, a comedian, and he made comments that were not great about Puerto Rico, and it blew up.
Right.
You then somehow get a call, and you're the guy to replace him. You know you're walking into a landmine. First of all, did you hesitate when they said, do you want to fill in?
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, here's the thing that's maybe a little bit of the difference is that Tony, who you're talking about, the comedian, Tony Hinchcliffe, who's brilliant in his own right and what he's done for so many comedians, and he's just helped a lot of people. He has his own set that kills, and he knows it. The Puerto Rico thing is a great bit for him, in comedy clubs. And it was very risky for him to do that. And he was even told, I think, by Joe Rogan not to. But he went for it. He did that at Madison Square Garden. It obviously blew up. And that was part of what he wanted, right? And so he did that. Now, the thing is that was a Trump event. And so Trump put that on at Madison Square Garden. Tucker Carlson put on the one on Halloween with Trump as his guest. And so that's how I got that gig, is that they called me and they said, hey, look, we could obviously choose any comedian we want. Any entertainer would throw down to be here that's on this kind of more conservative side. But do you want to be the opener for Trump? And I thought, oh my gosh, well, this is wild. Because
how fast did you call your wife? Honey, I got to talk to you about something.
I was actually on vacation at Bryce Canyon in Utah in my RV. I had just set up my satellite, the Starlink that I had just purchased to get Wi-Fi in the middle of nowhere. And I got a text from the tour manager, and he's like, hey, can you open for Trump and Tucker in Phoenix on Halloween night? And I was like, yes, I can. And I thought, okay, now Now I have drunk from the chalice. The elixir is down the hatch.
And again, blink in the eye moment of, because they probably have 10 names behind you. So if you pause, hesitate, you're out.
Accepting the Trump gig was crazy, and it was a huge opportunity for me. They told me that I'd maybe have 15 minutes to open, and I don't know if you know the story. Do you want this story?
Yeah, please. I would love, because this doesn't happen to too many people. They want it to happen, but what happens when it really happens?
Yeah, it was so much Secret Service was there, so many challenges. There's about 20,000 people at this arena. It's called the Desert Diamond Arena in Glendale, Arizona, near Phoenix. And I was supposed to do 15 minutes. I went on stage and they said, hey, Trump's not here yet, and some of his other guests aren't here yet. In fact, they were going to have people like RFK and, you know, other people that were extremely important to be on that stage.
So they're doing this off stage. They're saying
off stage, they're going like this, and I'm not looking over there because all they have to do is, they know me well enough now that they can just add time to the timer.
Yeah.
And I'll just stay on and I'll end it exactly on the second. And so I'm looking at the timer, it's going, you know, 15 down to 10 or something, and then all of a sudden it jumps to 25. And I'm like, oh. And so luckily on stage I have my iPhone up there, right? And this is where I do my tracks. So my music tracks, I can create the show on stage. And so now the 25 comes down to about 17, and then it jumps up to 30. And I'm like, oh man. So I'm on stage, I think, for about 45 minutes.
Wow.
They originally gave me 15.
Well, you can now teach a master class on, because most of us know when we're speakers, we're told just before we walk on, we got to cut you to 15. I know we said 25, but we got to cut. We're running late. You were told to go long. You can teach a master class now of, what if the tables reverse? Have your iPhone, have your bits, know how to loop in a part that you weren't going to use and bring it back in seamlessly. That would be fascinating, because I'm sure your mind was racing every time the clock went down and every time it went back up.
Yeah, I had to do some serious math, and I'm not good at math, but I've become good at math because of the fact that the timer's clicking and I'm thinking, okay, I have a 2-minute bit, 3-minute. Okay, I've got the 6 of these 1-minuters, and then I've got this one thing I need to do to close. The thing they wouldn't let me do at that gig was they wouldn't let me sing God Bless the USA, which had been my big closer for all these. So
right.
As the clock is ticking down, I'm thinking, okay, which one can I close with? And I had to essentially just close with whatever I felt like in that moment. That was a really interesting difference from what we had done before, because 3 hours later, I think it's that long, there were that many speakers in between me and Trump.
Yeah.
Trump finally shows up. I never got to meet him, never got a photo with him. He's elected the president within 5 days from there. It was crazy to be the part of the biggest event that he did prior to his election. And, I never would have said this a month prior, but he had become my guy. And I was voting for him. I was excited for him. I was thrilled to be a part of it. And I knew it was a historic opportunity for our country and for him. And I do feel that he's the right guy, even though lots of people don't. And I've had to stand on that and live with that. And it's the first time, because that's the first time I've ever voted in an election where the guy I voted for won.
Well, from your background, you said it earlier, you've voted Democrat, you voted Republican, you're more libertarian, but now you're at his big event and you have to endorse him. That's a different thing to vote where I want to go, but now you're center stage and you're really putting your name connected to him and you are endorsing him whether you like it or not. Did you have to wrestle with that, or was that moment you were already there?
I had to wrestle with that. Yeah, absolutely. Because I had not endorsed him, nor had I essentially endorsed anybody all the way up until that moment. But while I was sitting on, in the audience watching him with Tucker doing this brilliant interview with him, I finally posted on Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter and everywhere else. I finally said, this is the guy. This is what I just did tonight. I endorse him. And I'm telling you, Rich, man,
you took hits.
I got slaughtered. Oh man, because my friends that were on the left or in the middle had all just, I was truly in a space where I was thinking, you know what? I'm still not quite sure what's going on, what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm just here to entertain and bring joy and help patriotism bring our country together. And then I'm sitting there going, I have to make a choice, and this is the moment. And that was hard, but it was the right thing for me to do, and I'm happy that I did it.
So you take all the hits. We have a little bit of breathing time. We have the election. What's been the response now that people are through that? Have some people come back? Some people said, sorry, I was a jerk. Can you please delete those comments, Jason? Or is there still a gap right now to what was or what is with some of that fan following and support you had?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. This is really fascinating because no one's asked me these, and I love it. November 5th was probably one of the worst days of my life because, or November 6th, I guess, isn't that when the results were? So because I got so many negative things said to me, my name was dragged through the mud online with friends, with comments and so forth. It was rough. It was so bad, in fact, that I had to block some friends. I had to put some things on private. Eventually, I just stopped going on social media altogether. You know, it became so vitriolic that I couldn't even respond to the texts and the private messages I was getting, and people were so upset at me. It was interesting because then I went to Italy for about 2 weeks with my wife. We went to pick up our daughter, and she was a nanny out there. And it was nice to leave the country, actually, to be honest. And I rarely opened any social or any emails or anything just because I was like, I need to not be attacked anymore. And when I came home, it was interesting to get actually quite a few of messages from people saying, I was emotional. I apologize. I shouldn't be so worried about who you're voting for. It shouldn't affect our friendship. I mean, Rich, people are saying we can't be friends anymore. We can't interact.
I mean, instantly. Oh yeah. Boom.
Yeah. And I was like, wait a minute. I've been putting up with you telling me who you vote for my whole life. And I love you regardless. Like, how did this happen? And so it's been really weird to watch the double standard in that sense. It's just really disturbing. But I'll tell you what else is really cool.
Yeah.
I have a whole new group of friends. I have a whole bunch of people that are like, we are so happy. We're so proud of you. We thank you for standing for something. You know, even people that didn't vote for Trump came out on LinkedIn. I've got the messages. They said, I did not vote for him. I do not agree with his policies. I am so happy for your success. And I'm like, welcome to America. That's how I thought it should work. But it's really cool when somebody says that.
And sometimes when you least expect it, someone will say, I do not agree with you, but I respect the fact that you stood on your conviction. And because you're a true man of integrity, I can respect you for that besides the other nonsense. I think that's the coolest thing sometimes in those moments where, like, integrity wins. Even if we don't agree, integrity wins.
Yeah. And I was reached out by somebody who's extremely on the far left, who's a very big personality. I'm excited to have a new podcast that we're going to be doing a series of episodes where she's going to interview me and I'll interview her about getting through this whole thing together and why we should come together regardless of political affiliation. And I mean, I'm blown away. I started weeping when she called me. I was on the phone. I had to pull over and I said, I can't believe you're calling and inviting me to do this. She said, Jason, I've watched you too long. I know you're a great person inside, even though I don't agree with who you're voting for. We need to have this conversation. And I said, bring it on. I love you. Thank you.
I just had one of those the other day, and it is the coolest thing to say we're on opposite sides, but we can talk about this in a way that people will listen.
Yeah.
Because right now people aren't listening to the fighting and the beating and the name calling, but they will listen to people who are in a friendly discussion and they're on opposite sides of the table. They will.
We'll see how it goes. I'm just ecstatic that she would even ask. And so that'll be rolling out in 2025. We'll see how it goes.
So let me ask you about The Promise is part of your keynote. The Promise has been a big thing. Tell me how that has all developed and gone right now. And I see you smiling already.
Oh, yeah. What's funny about The Promise is that I've built a career off of keeping my word, saying what I'm going to do, being the guy of integrity, and then to have it all be questioned by people that were concerned about what I was now choosing, lot of people said, wow, your message is no longer valid. You're no longer the promise guy. That was a tough one to hear.
Yes.
But I created the message based around the fact that all of us set goals, but we need to, if we set a goal and we miss it, we just set another one. Whereas if we make a promise and break it, that's a one and done. So what are your real promises you're going to keep every day? And what are the goals that are the particulars that lead to the promises that are your proclamations? So what do you proclaim your promise could be? And it's a very simple concept, but a lot of businesses are jumping on this concept of saying, our promise to you is this, or we promise and make a promise to us. And I like that language. I think it's powerful. It's heavier. It's a promise is a sacred goal.
Yeah.
And I think that that's nice to be able to have something that's kind of intangible, but that is absolutely accountable. And a promise.
I can remember commercials back in the 60s and 70s, the seal of approval, our promise. You know, the CEO, someone would say it, it's our promise to you. And you felt that it was kind of the handshake through the TV or through the radio of like, I promise you. There's something to that I think we've lost for the last several years. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I love that you brought that up, because truly, if now let's just go spiritual for a second. If God said to you, my goal is to get you to come back to me someday, I would be like, oh man. But he says, my promise is that I will get you to come back to me someday. So, okay, I prefer the promise, so I mean, that's one side of it. But yes, when it comes to business, when it comes to family,
yes,
we don't set a goal at the altar. Imagine if the preacher looked at the at the man and or the woman, and he goes, I do, and then the guy goes, well, I set a goal to be faithful. It's like, that's
as a former minister, that would be the worst. That would be like, time out, guy, we need to talk real quickly here. Yes, that would be the worst.
Yeah, so let's make a promise that you're going to be faithful to this person. And Rich, in learning what the promise is and how important it is to people on a personal level, it's really become a thing that's wonderful. And to say something like, my promise to my family is to put my phone down and be more present. And so that's not necessarily a goal. That's like a life becoming.
Yes.
And while I was on this process with Tucker and then eventually with Trump, as I'm essentially crossing this threshold in my hero's journey, if you will,
yes,
I did want to turn away for my own promise to myself. And the very night of the Trump event, as I was still questioning, did I do this right or did I do this wrong? The great tender mercy for me was that out walked in the bowels of the arena, through the doorway as I was leaving, somebody who's become a true mentor to me, and I never knew I'd meet him, but his name is Dr. Jordan Peterson. And he was there with his daughter, Michaela. And it brought me to my knees to think that God would put in my path confirmations of what I was doing, that it was a good thing. And to be able to meet somebody that I had looked up to so much. My dad was there with me, as was my beautiful wife. And that was a moment that I said, okay, this is one of those moments where you say, I know that what I was doing is leading me down the right path.
Stepping through the door was the right thing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I do want to go back because it's been a powerful part of your journey, but cardio. Tell us what your father, and this whole thing is about.
Yeah, Cardio Miracle. That's cool. You got the little screenshot. Look how savvy you are, man. I love it. Yes.
Man, we do it all here.
I can tell. Yeah, so Cardio Miracle is the world's greatest nitric oxide product. And people think when they hear that word that it's like the dentist's nitrous oxide. That's not the thing. Nitric oxide is a miracle molecule that goes into your blood cells, and it actually helps with your blood flow. So that's why it's called Cardio Miracle. It helps with your cardiovascular system. It helps people to have their blood flow right, their hearts to beat better in terms of just the oxygenation and equally all of the nutrients that get into your system.
Well, Jason, one more thing we got to share out here is your website. And again, because your website was that thing they looked at and said, who is this guy?
Yeah.
So everyone hit the QR code, go scan it, learn more about, again, I've been watching Jason for a while, and I tell you, he is funny. He is entertaining, but he also hits you sometime with some, you got to think and scratch your head stuff, Jason.
That's good. I appreciate it. So yeah, the website is changing. It will change in the next few months, but yeah, go check it out, jasonhewlett.com. I am available for corporate bookings, for entertaining in the evening, or the keynote leadership speech in the morning. And that does not mean I'm just giving a lecture. I'm adding in music, comedy, impressions, stuff that nobody does and nobody's ever done. And that's what makes it a once in a lifetime experience having me there.
Have you pinched yourself yet, or has your wife pinched you? Is this real, or is it like the Wizard of Oz? You're going to wake up one morning and it's gone.
I don't know what's going to happen. As you know, fame is so fleeting. It really doesn't matter at all, other than if you can make something good of it. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to get in front of a lot of people and make them smile. I will never be Michelangelo and leave the David or the Sistine Chapel that left behind. But what I can do is create a moment and an experience that nobody will ever forget in their life, if they're willing to laugh, maybe cry, maybe feel some inspiration and patriotism, and all of those things are good things. So I'm just, yeah, we're very grateful for what's happened. And equally, we understand that it could go away at a moment's notice. And so we're enjoying the present as it is.
Before I let you go, what's the greatest piece of advice you would give somebody that they get that surprise phone call, they get the email, and all of a sudden the door they've been hoping for, or maybe not even the door they were hoping for, a door opens up that's so huge? What would you tell them about the process of stepping in or not stepping in? What can they do to make a wise decision?
Regret never goes away. So walk through every opportunity and every door that opens. It's better to fail than to regret. And if we keep the promise to ourselves, most of the time, the doors that are opened are the right ones. And if we fail in that pursuit, then we've had an incredible journey and adventure anyway. And so keep the promise to walk through that door.
Jason Hewlett, great to have you on the show. Congratulations on your success. And we're going to keep watching because you're not done yet.
I hope not. Thanks, man.
Thanks, Jason. Jason Hewlett, again, you're going to want to keep watching and know that name and see what happens, because in the blink of an eye, Tucker Carlson being on that Donald Trump rally and all the other things before that were stepping stones to get him where he got. But I also want to go back to one of the most interesting things I think of all of this, the support of his father. I want you to understand the power of support of wise people, great people in your life. They can be the ones opening the doors. They can be the one that supports you when no one else does. It's amazing. Sometimes the love of a father can be far more powerful than we understand it to be. Hey, that's going to do it for this week's edition of Rock the Stage Show. We'll be back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, with another great guest. Highly unscripted, deep conversations, and a few laughs, a lot of fun along the way. We'll see you back here next week